the South African National Editors Forum has condemned the vandalism at the late South African journalist Nat Nakasa's grave. It says it's disappointed in the eThekwini Municipality for failing to fulfill a promise it made to restore the final resting place of the anti-apartheid icon. Nakasa's remains were repatriated to his hometown outside Durban back in 2014 after he died in New York more than 50 years ago. For more on this, we're joined now by SANEF's Gauteng Acting Regional Convenor, that's Hopewell, Radebe. Mr. Radebe, thanks very much indeed for your time on the program this morning. It's sad, isn't it, that the icons of our own liberation struggle, and certainly Nat Nakasa is one of those people, that their final resting place isn't given the respect that it deserves.
Very good morning, my lady. Yes, it is a very disappointing situation here, but also it's not just about the lack of action by the municipality. I think we should also be asking ourselves as a community that why are we getting to be the kinds of human beings that would desecrate and dishonor and disrespect their dead? Because it should not be just about Nat Nakasa, but the gravesite, the resting place of all our communities, our heroes and family members, should be a respected area.
Yeah, in fact, to your point, it's the gravesite of Nat Nakasa, also that of Bafana goalkeeper Senzo Mayiwa, both vandalized last year. And on the issue of vandalism, if you take a look at that Heroes Acre cemetery as well, the general upkeep there is definitely lacking.
Yeah, I think we've also asked our regional leaders in KwaZulu-Natal to go and sort of have a look. But the pictures speak for themselves of how the area is in general being maintained, or the lack of maintenance in that area. But, you know, around about December, my family and I tend to go to, like, my father's grave, my uncle's, and so on. And we sort of clean the area usually around about December. And many colleagues that I know in the Eastern Cape and so on tend to do that as well. So you would expect that around about a certain point a year, maybe once a year, people should visit the gravesite of their beloved families and sort of clean that. But you look, if you go around Johannesburg, in Soweto, the Avalon, it's also overgrown with grass. So it speaks in general of how we are beginning to not really give love and care for the grave sites of our family members.
Yeah. Hopewell, tell us a bit about Nat Nakasa and who he was. His death came when he realized that he would never be able to return to South Africa. He was on an exit permit studying on a Nieman Fellowship at Harvard. It was after he had finished that fellowship and was working, I believe, in New York. But tell us a bit about him. He's been described as a young man, because at the time of his death he was 28 years old. He's been described as a young man in the mold of Nelson Mandela, who was many years ahead of his time.
Absolutely. The kind of stuff he wrote, he was a thorn in the flesh of the government then. And he tended to reflect a lot about the treatment. And you remember, you might know that there were pass laws then. Without getting the pass laws, and the idea of getting those, what you call IDs stamped, you know, to say you can now go and work in this city or that town, it was a nightmare. People had to bribe officials to be able to do that. So he wrote about those things. He wrote about how these influx control actions or laws were practically meant to keep Africans or keep them in so-called rural areas and make sure that they don't get the rights. So he offended them a great deal and spoke about the ill and the humiliation that Africans suffered in the hands of the police. So when he got a Nieman Fellowship, the state kind of said, oh, good riddance, you are getting an exit permit, you are not coming back here at all. But he went, and he hoped that it would work out, he would be able to come back home. Unfortunately for him, it did not happen. And he was freelancing, I'm told, also around New York, and reflecting and writing about what he was seeing there. And he was surprised that there was just as much ill treatment of Africans in New York or in the United States in general. And he wrote about that too. At what stage it got too depressed when he found that the world he felt was for the free was equally oppressive and discriminating, and he ended up unfortunately taking his life. Many still believe that had there been an opportunity to talk to him by people who were there, and had he reached out, he could have been saved.
Yeah.
But then life was life.
Yeah, incredibly sad story. In fact, at the time of his death, he, as you say, he was freelancing, writing for a number of newspapers and magazines, including the New York Times. In fact, the South African National Editors Forum itself has an annual award for courageous journalism, which is named after Nat Nakasa.
Yes, we do it once, but I think this year will be the 24th year, and we celebrated last year the 20th of the Nat Nakasa. I think around about March, April, we'll be calling for nominations. But we have always honored him. We have even increased it to be not just the journalist of the year, but to also add the category of the community journalist of the year, so that we kind of cater for the mainstream and also for the community media stream, which is still struggling most of the time. But also we felt that it's just not a fair comparison, because the mainstream newspapers, journalists have the resources, while the community media journalists don't have sufficient resources to participate. So we now give the community journalist of the year as well.
Hopewell, Radebe, let me thank you for your time this morning, and also take the opportunity to apologize to our viewers for the quality of that connection. But that is SANEF's Gauteng acting regional convener. SANEF condemning the vandalism of Nat Nakasa's grave. It's appealing to the eThekwini Municipality to act on its promise to restore not only Nat Nakasa's grave, but certainly a number of others, and Heroes Acre in general. That's a story that we're keeping our eyes on for you here on the channel.